just finished watching a movie called Artificial Intelligence. It's about this robot boy named David who was neglected by his family and... Wait, the character in my story is named David too! So, that is just a coincidence because I just read a book called The Dog Who Wanted to Die by Colleen Rutherford Archer. Colleen Rutherford Archer was born in 1949 in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. She's a freelance writer and has volunteered at a senior citizens home and at a horse riding program. She is part of the Canadian Society of Children's Authors, Illustrators, and Performers. She has won awards such as the Vicky Metcalf Short Story Award, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation Ottawa Regional Children's Short Story Award, and the Ottawa Literacy Award in 2005. She has written other books such as Foxy and the Missing Mask, Riding High, Collie Rescue, Galloping Gold Rush, as well as many others. Great, now we know more about the author, Colleen Rutherford Archer. But what inspired her to write the book? That is where we're going to look at the culturally or historically specific insights. Colleen Rutherford Archer was born in the era when World War II ended and the Cold War had just begun. Around the time when she wrote the book, there were so many minor wars, drugs, and protests. In an interview with Sada, she stated that, "I tried to write positive, informative young adult novels. The kind of books about animals that I would have enjoyed reading when I was young. I feel there are more than enough negative books." This is why the story, The Dog Who Wanted to Die, has a happy ending, since she could have easily said that the dog died in the end. Awesome! We know how she lived her life and what inspired her to write the book. Now let's dive into the book. Who are the characters in the story? Let's look at the character description. The main characters in the story are Monty and the child David. Monty is a black fur dog from the Claphams. He was a smelly dog with the skin being full of sores. The Claphams didn't seem to pay much attention to Monty. Therefore, in the condition that he was in, he was so sad and neglected that he just wanted to take his own life. David is the 15-year-old son of Mr. and Mrs. Parker. We now know the characters in the story, but where did the story take place? That's why we are going to look at the setting and its significance. In the beginning of the story, the Claphams had just moved into town, and though there had been some strange family renting there before, the Claphams were described as the worst gift. Mrs. Clapham rarely came out of the house, but Mr. Clapham was described as large and red-faced and always had something to complain about. That would range from children making too much noise to cars driving too fast to pets running loose. This busy study suggests that the atmosphere is very loud and there will be no rest in the area because there will always be noise pollution. When Monty was trying to take his own life, the neighborhood became used to screeching brakes, angry sounds, and honking horns, which also puts an angry mood in the picture. In another scene of the story, David did not listen to his mother when she told him to be sure to lock the door, for there had been many robberies that month. David then said things like, "Why hadn't he locked the door? Why hadn't he left some lights on?" Which signifies that inside the house was dark and scary since he was home alone. We know the characters, we know the setting, now let me summarize the story. Firstly, the exposition is when David's parents were divorcing and the Claphams have just moved into town. There are two main types of conflicts in the story. We have man versus self because David was battling his own thoughts. And then we have man versus man because David was not sure whether to still have a good relationship with his father. Let's read a piece of the story proving this. Why did he have to leave? If you would demand. He had a good job here. It's not a matter of job. You know, we decided to separate long before he caught the supervisor officer. Please, David, won't you at least drop him a line? This really proves that David was seriously not happy. Tiny Mrs. Parker worked harder than ever as a freelance photographer now that she and David were alone. David, on the other hand, stopped working completely and his school marks dropped. The rising action of the story is when the Claphams moved out of the neighborhood and left their dog behind. The Claphams didn't take good care of Monty, as he was giving him potato peelings, stale bread, and leftovers once in a while for food. Monty desperately wanted to take his own life. Every time a car came into sight, Monty would head into the center of the road and lie down on his side. David never liked the dog at first, But when he saw his attempts to commit suicide, he later changed heart and decided to adopt him. The climax of the story is when burglars broke into the house and Monty rescued David from danger. We could see this in another extract of the story. David was too terrified to scream, and his eyes closed in terror as the arm with the flashlight descended towards his head. There was no pain, however. Instead, he heard a low snarl, and when he opened his eyes, Monty was clinging tightly to the jacketed arm. The fall-in action of the story is when David called the police, and they were kind enough to drive both him and Monty to the vet. The doctor then gave Monty medicine and told David how to properly care for it. David just really wanted Monty to feel better, and if he could do anything for the dog, he was willing to do it. The resolution of the story is when David took great care of Monty, and soon all his sores healed. All this cost money, and he knew he should earn it himself instead of relying on his mother. He found a job delivering circulars for the community's advertising newspaper. But it was enough to keep Monty, with a little spending money left over for himself. He became a stronger and healthy dog. Due to this, David achieved good grades at school, and he finally started to talk to his father again. This is the happy ending of the story. Isn't this a beautiful story? All good stories use figurative language, so we are going to look at the literacy devices that were used in the story. The first one we are going to look at is imagery. A stomach flat and bloated, but his legs were spindly. His dull black fur was filled with crust and scabs, and bald red patches with oozing sores. The sight of the fat and smelly dog sent the boy into a rage. These sentences of imagery give us good detail of how the dog was when he was with the clamhams. We can smell, see, and feel the ugly nature of the dog. The next literacy device we are going to look at is hyperbole. Just looking at the dog, Monty, made David sick. Of course, David wasn't actually sick when he saw the dog, so this is a huge exaggeration. The next device we are going to look at is personification. Then there will be the roar of an engine. The truck screamed to stop a few feet away from them. By the time the old car roared away. The cars are given human qualities as being able to roar away or scream. When Monty was trying to commit suicide, the cars will always have to brake because they didn't want to run over the dog. Let's look at another example of personification. The curtains were gone from the windows and the lawn ornaments had disappeared from the yard. This is personification because these items are given human qualities as being able to run away. This scenery helped David to know that something was going on at the clamhams. That is when later his friend Alvin Cross told him that they have moved away. Moving on to our third example. His room was Spartan by choice, with no posters and no loud colors. This is also personification because bright colors are being explained as loud. Spartan refers to the lifestyle of people living in ancient Greece. Here we can picture that the walls of the room were pale but neutral colors with a dull appearance and not too much clutter in the room. Let's look at our final example of personification. An eerie beam of light played on the hall wall. This strange and frightening use of personification makes us picture that the light is dancing or playing on the hall wall. This was very frightening for David because he knew burglars broke into the house, but just seeing the beams of light on the wall signaled to him that they were close by. Now let's look at simile. David came home from school one day in a mood as black as hair. This could suggest that he did not have a good day at school, and just seeing the dog make his mood darken some more because black suggests darkness. Finally, let me talk about this interesting literacy device that not much people are familiar with. That is paradox. Luck seemed to be with the dog, or perhaps not with him. This sentence is paradox because it is contrasting two ideas. Luck seemed to be with the dog because he was not dying from his suicide attempts. At the same time, he was not feeling any happier because he was still neglected. Now we are going to talk about the narrative voice significance. The story is written in the third-person point of view because the narrator was not one of the characters in the story. It's like us telling a story from afar. Now, let's look at the use of dialogue. How did it help me to understand the story better? Well, the use of dialogue helps to portray what each character was saying. It is easier to understand than if the narrator were to explain what was happening step by step. It gives the characters a voice and makes the story come to life as we can picture the change of mood when they speak. The use of dialogue in this story gave me a better understanding of how David actually reacted to each situation. Did the story help other people? How did she get her message across? Let's look at the effectiveness of the story. The story is very effective, mainly because she published the story in a magazine, and that helped her to get the message across. She also published it in an anthology called Windows and Mirrors in 1986. This is another great way of spreading the message because other people who like reading books may also stumble across this story as well. Now I will talk about the new and/or important vocabulary. In every good book that I read, I always learn new words that I've never come across before. In total, I learned 11 new words. Spindly, scabs, bellowed, blustered, futile, loathed, hauled, ecstasy, convict, indigently, and kibble. The important words are deliberately, tottered, roused, snarled, trots, pleading. These are all actions between David and the dog. Freelance, because the mother was a freelance photographer. Humane, because his friend Alvin Cross gave him an idea that he should send the dog to the Humane Society. Spartan, eerie, because these describe the rooms when David's mom was out of the house. And the most important word is neglect. We see neglect throughout the whole story, so this is what makes it a very important word. Let's talk about the tone and mood. In the beginning of the story, the tone was very heavy, with the mood being dark and full of anger and sadness. It was the last 2 pages that raised the tone to a cheerful and light-hearted mood. Let me read a short extract of the story proving my point. Here is where the tone got angry. Not only wouldn't David write to his father, he would also burn the unopened letters postmarked Ottawa, which came to him twice a week. And here is when the tone just got cheerful and happy. David. Mrs. Parker's voice was hesitant, her eyes pleading. It's for you. It's your dad. To her surprise, David came forward and took the receiver. Hello, Dad? How are you? At first, David's voice was shy. Then suddenly, the words poured out. I'm coming to visit you this summer after all. I'll be down on the bus next week. Only for a few days, though. I can't leave my dog for long. I have to tell you about Monty, Dad. He's the best looking dog you've ever seen. Did Mom tell you he probably saved my life? David was so busy talking he didn't see his mother smile. Nor did he hear the thump of a well-brushed tail on the hard kitchen floor as he spoke the name Monty in a voice filled with love. You see, first David was so mad that it feels like the author also wrote with a heavy tone. But then in the ending, since David was happy, the writer also decided to twist the flow from being an angry boy to a happy boy. So she went from an angry tone to a happy tone. That is why it sounded so sweet and lovely in the end. Now we can talk about the theme. There are 2 main themes which we can pick up from this story. The main theme of the story is neglect. The dog was neglected, and the lack of no companion made Monty think that suicide would solve all his problems. The second theme is sympathy. David's grades started falling, and he was not happy in school or towards his own family members, especially to his father, not because he divorced his mother, but also because of the dog. He had some sympathy for the dog and decided to adopt it in the end. When the dog was healthy, he was happy too, and his mood towards his father changed as well. Let's look at the meaning or the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that everyone should love one another and look out for each other. You should not neglect anyone because the way they will behave and the way they will see themselves will be affected. How the story relates to us today is that the dog could actually represent a human being who has been neglected and feels lonely. It could be an elderly person who has no one to take care of them, or a teen feeling lonely because of peer pressure and them thinking no one likes them anymore. We should all help to look out for each other. That is my brief analysis on The Dog Who Wanted to Die by Colleen Rutherford Archer. I hope you enjoyed it.